Builties, how's it going? We wanted to cut in, do a little housekeeping before we start this next interview. I want to remind everybody we're more than just podcast hosts. We're active brokers. We have a bunch of off-market deals, and we would love nothing more than to do deals with our listeners. So please reach out. We have relationships with developers, investors, and all the leaders shaping the built environment here in South Florida. The podcast is growing, guys. We really appreciate your support. We got thousands of listeners now, growing at double-digit % every month. And we're still offering advertising opportunities. So if anyone wants to advertise with us, please reach out to me or Felipe. Happy to walk you guys through what that looks like. And we're doing a coffee club.
Yeah, Ben, we are doing a coffee club. It's more than a coffee club. It's the Built World Cafecito Club. We're going to get together in person with hopefully all our listeners and some of our podcast guests. We're going to start our first one on May 9th. We're planning to do this every second Friday at 9 a.m. at Maman in Wynwood. So stop on by. We start at 9-ish. That's Miami time. So be sort of on time, I guess.
Yeah, that works. Don't be too early. Don't be weird.
Yeah. But don't be too late, too.
Exactly.
We got to get to work.
You guys know what it is.
So no sales pitches, no panels, just real talk. And we hope to meet some of our listeners and connect the dots with a bunch of people here in South Florida.
Yeah, let's do it, guys. Let's do some deals together. Let's build what's next together.
Love it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Before we get into this next guest, we wanted to give a huge thank you to all of our guests, listeners, and advertisers for all of your support. Please spread the Built World love by leaving us a review, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and subscribe to the show. We drop a new episode every Tuesday and plan to keep them coming. This next episode is brought to you by Bureau, our title sponsor. With 8 vibrant locations in Miami's best neighborhoods, Bureau is the perfect co-working place to work, network, and thrive alongside other entrepreneurs and creatives. Find your space at bureaumiami.com. Let's go.
How do you sound, Lissette?
I think I sound awful like always.
What?
I have such a bad voice.
So we hate the sound of our voices too. So I think it's just natural. So don't sweat it.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I hear my voice, it sounds like I'm plugging my nose.
Yeah.
I have, everyone's a little what was his, Ziff?
Yeah.
He couldn't even listen to him. He was like, I can't even watch myself. I can't even listen to it. Someone else will have to preview my episode and tell you if it's good or not, because I can't handle it.
Well, cool. We're here with Ms. Lissette Calderon, Mrs., right?
Mrs.
The founder and CEO of Neology Group. And welcome, Lissette.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're excited
Came in
to
hot
have
with
you.
a bottle of tequila.
Yeah.
Casa Dragones.
I know, right? So we'd love it when guests bring us.
Cheers.
Cheers, Lissette.
You got it, man. This is how our sound guy goes. The levels are synced up.
Cheers, Lissette. Thank you for joining us.
We don't have one of those old school video like snappers, so we just use cheers.
Exactly. So cool. Delicious.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We love it when our guests bring
That's
us tequila. It's our favorite drink on the show too.
Oh, mine too.
Yeah. So so tell us a little bit about this tequila.
Casa Dragones. It is absolutely my favorite. It's founded in 2009. It's a small little, but the more interesting part is that it was founded and it's led by Berta Gonzalez Nieves, the first female tequilera in the world.
Have you ever met her?
I have not met her, but that's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
It's out of San Miguel de Allende, so incredible little town. And
You've been there?
yes, I have.
Yeah. Have you been to the distillery or no?
I did go to the distillery. I
you.
was there for a wedding, and it was a lot of fun.
Is that where you discovered Casa
I
Dragones?
did.
Yeah.
And that's where I discovered it and fell in love, and it's been happily ever after.
Love
ever
at first
since.
sight, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love at first sip, actually.
Love at first sip.
Cool. Well, have you done podcasts before?
I have.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Have you ever had a podcast where you drink alcohol?
I have not.
Okay, so
I'm
there's a
little
first.
scared.
There's a first for everything.
There's a first for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously a podcast not as cool as us.
Yeah.
I mean, and if I was gonna drink with anybody, it'd be with you two.
Okay, appreciate it.
So.
Appreciate it.
Cool. So, have you listened to any of our podcasts?
I have.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess you've listened to Iris's,
I have.
and Iris is the one that made you bring a bottle of tequila, huh?
We were on the phone last night, and she said, "You better bring a bottle of something." My understanding is she brought bourbon, so had to make sure that, we had something just as fun. So brought my favorite.
Cool. So we kind of we've actually we reached out to you I don't know about a year and a half ago to get you on the podcast. So we're finally excited to get you on the podcast. We've been following you and your story. At least I have since your first project on the Miami River. But before we get into that, we kind of want to get a little background about you. You're a Miami OG girl, right? Like born and raised in the 305.
I am Miami OG public school grad.
Yeah.
About as Miami as it comes.
All right.
So
we like
yes,
that.
born and raised in Miami, literally on the banks of the Miami River.
On the banks of the Miami
On the
River.
banks of the Miami River.
Yeah.
It is now the Miami Circle, but
Yeah.
it was a 2-story apartment back then when my parents had me.
Oh, is that right?
Parents went to Coral Gables High and Miami High, so we go back.
So you were on the apartment that was above the
Miami
circle?
Yep.
Any like freaky shit going on, like with
No,
the
but
burial
really
ground,
cool
like
pictures of my first birthday party.
yeah.
What's the Miami Circle?
It's right by here by what's the building over here?
It's right by the Met. It's down at the mouth of the Miami River.
Yeah. It's
So right there, kind of
it's
at
an
the intersection.
indigenous-
Where I
It's
found Berkeley is?
indigenous
Yeah.
of the Tequesta
Yeah.
Indians.
Oh, okay. Where they're building the Baccarat, right?
Right on the other side of the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
On the north side
It is on
or
the
the
south side.
Oh, okay.
So you grew up in an apartment that was where on the actual site, and when they tore it down, that's when they discovered.
the Miami Circle. Yeah.
Oh wow!
So, but we had moved since then.
Yeah.
So it was not one of those that we were there from the till the very end. But I am a proud Coral Gables Cavalier.
Yeah.
So excited to be a part of that. And
So you guys moved from basically Brickell to Coral Gables?
no,
Oh.
but I was in the IB program.
Oh,
So
got it. Okay.
that was when it was a magnet. But no, did not live in the Gables.
Yeah.
Always aspired to.
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I would drive by the Coca Plum Circle and say like one day I want to live there. But no, I had friends in high school that did.
Cool. So real quick, going back though, your parents are both Cuban immigrants.
My parents are both Cuban immigrants. My mom came when she was 5. She was the first Cuban at St. Peter and Paul.
Okay.
So that was, she's going to kill me for dating her, but I want to say it was like 1960, 1961. My dad came a few years later because the U.S. Would not let him in, so he had to wait it out in Costa Rica for a few years. And he came straight to Miami High.
Okay.
So he ended up going to Miami High.
And your parents met where?
It was called Pantry Pride or something like that, like the equivalent of Publix.
Okay.
It's where at one point an extended stay was. It's there at, kind of on West Brickell area.
So he picked up your mom or vice versa while they were
Yeah,
shopping, grocery shopping.
No, my mom was the cashier and my dad was the floor sweeper.
Oh,
and she
that's
thought it was
awesome.
so cute that he couldn't speak a word of English. And he would just say yes to everything.
Wow. So your parents were working at a supermarket, and that's where they met.
They met and they had me at 17.
Wow. They were young.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
According to my mom, she's still young.
Yeah.
She is.
She's
I believe
still
it.
young. Don't tell her.
That's
Otherwise.
awesome. So, and so then you guys moved to Brickell, or you lived in Brickell, and then, Brickell back then was a different sort of Brickell.
Yeah,
right?
it was. My grandmother was a maid at the Sheridan Four Ambassadors that still stands there, so that's why we lived there.
Okay.
Because it was a close walking distance for her. She worked as a housekeeper
Yeah.
at the hotel.
Wow.
And then, my dad, graduated and just kind of had, the jobs that, whatever came his way. My mom worked at a dentist office as like an assistant or something.
Gotcha.
Ultimately ended up staying home with me.
Uh-huh.
I was apparently a sickly little kid and took up a lot of time.
Yeah.
If you ask her, she probably says I still do.
Uh-huh.
I'm still a lot. But so she stayed. And then, of course, my brother came 8 years later. And by then we were living out in, kind of out in West Kendall in the suburbs,
Gotcha.
where I think, everybody kind of moved out there.
So you're more of a Kendall girl than
I would say Westchester.
yeah, Westchester.
Westchester. I grew up across the street from FIU.
Okay.
So I would ride my bike to FIU when it wasn't FIU that it is today.
Yeah.
So we moved out there probably when I was, 5 years old or so.
And you grew up in Westchester basically.
Yeah.
And just you and your brother.
Just my brother and I.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Still my bestie.
Yeah.
The real 305, right?
Yeah, the real 305. Still my bestie. Yeah. Coral Park, Rockaway.
Yeah.
You know, we grew up with all of that. The Dade County Youth Fair.
Yep. I mean, that was right across the street from you, right?
It was right across the street.
Yeah.
That was the best time of the year when the youth fair was going on.
That's
Yeah, so we could go across. You learned to drive
Yeah.
there at FIU. Your parents would let you learn
big
to drive.
parking lot.
Yeah, they had a big parking lot.
Nice.
It's kind of fun. You learn to drive stick shift, something kids today don't know how to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you still rip a stick shift?
I can.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you should see me on US 1.
You
Nice.
still drive a stick shift?
I do.
Nice. What kind of car do you drive?
Well, it's not my everyday car, but it's my fun car.
What's your fun car?
It's a 1963 Stingray Corvette convertible.
Wow. That's slick.
Yeah, no power steering.
Full gringo mode on that one.
Yeah, you know what? It's the American dream.
Yeah, I love it. I love
You know,
it.
that was one of the first cars, you know, that I really kind of just bought for fun.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And so that sits,
How long have you had this?
it's a her.
It's a her.
It's a her.
Okay.
Her name's Betty Blue.
Betty Blue.
She's
Is she blue?
Yes.
What color? Go.
It's like that real pretty sky blue.
Okay.
She lives in my garage.
Yeah.
My kids don't go anywhere near her.
How often do you drive her?
Probably every 2 weeks or so.
Nice.
And then I try to take her out and around the neighborhood at least, you know, just to kind of keep her in shape.
Yeah.
Gotta get those steps in.
Yeah, you got to get the steps in.
I get it.
You know, and I fell in love with her. I found her in Michigan from the original owner.
Oh, wow.
And
So you're the second owner.
I am the second owner.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I was in Michigan and I saw it and I went to see it. And
You were in Michigan when you saw it.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, we were in Michigan. And I was like, so I drove her around Michigan for like the month that I was there.
Uh-huh.
And then it was time to send her home to Miami.
And how long have you had her?
I've had her since 2021.
Okay.
Okay.
So you guys, wow.
Little pandemic gift.
That's
to myself.
crazy.
Love that.
And you said it's a 68.
63.
63 two-owner car.
That's crazy.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's really pretty. She's cool. Like anywhere you pull up with her, she
I bet.
definitely gets a lot of stairs.
bet.
so-
Oh, sure.
yeah, I like to think it's me, but it's all her.
You know, Felipe, ever since we moved into Bureau, my productivity has been through the roof. I mean, I might actually be getting things done for once.
The energy at Bureau just makes work fun. Plus, with 8 locations across South Florida, from South Miami all the way to Hollywood, there's no excuse for not finding a spot to get your shit done, Ben.
And we're not alone. Over 500 local companies call Bureau home. Everything from creative agencies and real estate firms to tech startups, law firms, and media companies. It's a melting pot of brilliant people, and we don't include ourselves in that category.
We definitely don't include ourselves in that category. Bureau really has space for anyone, whether you're flying solo or have a team. There are suites starting at 100 square feet all the way up to 2,000 square feet. They also don't try to lock you into long-term agreements, and everything is month to month.
Let's not forget the important stuff either. The coffee is top tier, staff is incredible, and has a very entrepreneurial vibe. It's not just a workspace. It's a place where work actually gets done.
That's right, Ben. So if you want to level up your workday like we try to do every day, check out Bureau. You might even catch us sipping some espressos between podcast sessions.
Or tequila.
Definitely tequila.
Tell Bureau the Built World sent you, and you'll get 50% off your first month's membership. See you out there. Cheers.
Later. Cool. So then you went to elementary school out in Westchester too?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I was a St. Kevin girl.
okay.
That's, again, OG opened up that school
Yeah.
out on Bird Road and 127th. Went on to St. Brendan, heart of Westchester.
Okay.
But that was short-lived. So ended up at Gables High.
And
Yeah.
that so you ended up at Gables High because it was what program did you say it was?
I was in the International Baccalaureate program
Okay.
back in the day, and it was fantastic. My parents just did not know what else to do with me. I was just not, private school, and I just did not get along.
Didn't get along in private
We
school.
just did not get along.
What was it with private school?
I don't know. I think it was just two in the box. And they
Yeah.
just kept telling me I couldn't do something. And the more they told me I couldn't do it, the more I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just one of those moments that, it has since changed. My nieces go there. It's fantastic. I think at the time it's just, I was probably outside of what they were accustomed to.
Yeah. You're a bit of a history buff.
I am a history junkie. And by the way, I have to put in a plug. Gables High was absolutely the best place in the world. It was Camelot. The teachers that I had there were the OGs. I still keep in touch with them. They were fantastic. My friends, are still my friends. My maid of honor, my daughters, godmother is still my best friend from high school.
Do you know Luciana Gonzalez, the former assistant planning director? She went there too, didn't she?
I don't know.
I think you guys probably went there around the same time.
I don't know. I mean, I just graduated
Yeah.
5 years ago.
She loved it too.
Yeah, but I was just there like 5 years ago.
Recent grad.
Recent grad. No, and I mean, it was just an incredible ride. Like they just pushed you to be like, I think I got there and I wasn't really sure who I was. And then I get to this school and they're like, oh, you think you're so smart, right? Well, here, take AP Calculus. Oh, you think you can do that? Here's AP Calc 2. And oh, you think you can do that? Here's AP Physics.
So you did well. You did well in math. You were a good math student.
I was a good STEM kid.
Yeah.
I was that STEM kid, but I was probably an anomaly because at the same time I was doing that, just had a great time. Like I was class president.
Oh wow, look at you overachiever.
Yeah, prom queen.
Yeah.
I still have my trophy.
Wow.
Still have that Gables trophy. But it was just an incredible time, incredible people. Still see so many of my friends. You know,
Yeah.
still do reunions. We're actually overdue for one, but just fantastic.
Your 5 year, right? Your 5 year.
My 5 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 5 year. You know, of course. So that was great, and they believed in me long before I believed in myself. Because when it was time to pick colleges, I was like, "So where do I go?"
But just backing it up to high school. So did you clearly you were clearly a good student. You liked
Once she got to Gables.
Once I got to Gables, let's clarify that.
so you got there in 9th grade.
I got there in 10th grade.
Oh, 10th grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know a soul.
Yeah. But you also enjoyed history. You liked your social studies classes.
I did. I am still friends with my AP history teacher.
Yeah.
I love him.
Any besides class president? Any sports you played in high school?
I have a black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh wow, look at that.
Don't piss me off.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm actually scared now.
He just backed down this whole line of questioning.
She drives a Corvette and she knows Taekwondo.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay, and then
But I think that was done purposely by my mom.
Yeah.
So I could channel that energy somewhere.
okay.
Because I was driving her crazy.
Yeah.
You're a fighter.
I think, it's just, even to this day, I realize I don't really sit at my desk. I kind of just walk around my desk.
Yeah.
Even when I'm on calls, like if I could do this podcast like standing up, I'd probably,
Yeah.
it'd be perfect.
Okay. And then entrepreneurial inklings. Did you have any jobs in high school, or were you like doing anything that when did you start realizing you were an entrepreneur? And then going back to the original question, did you work during high school?
I did. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
What did you like about it? The office, the suits,
I wanted
was it the work?
Yes, I dreamt of being that person that clicked in her heels into the court and just kind of argued the case. So I thought I was going to be a litigator.
Yeah.
I swore I was going to be a litigator.
You probably would have been a great litigator.
It would have been fun.
Yeah.
It would have been fun. So I swore I was going to be. So I worked in like the law offices. I mean, I'm going to date myself. I would like send faxes. Like there was nothing real interesting about what I was doing. I mean, really, what is a 15-year-old doing other than being, a gopher? But I was the happiest gopher in the world. And I dressed like I was an attorney.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was an attorney even though I was a gopher. But it was neat. And I got to work at law firms. And I thought I really wanted to be. And it was really only until like college that I figured out that, I thought I wanted to be a corporate attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was going to do that. So, and then in terms of my business, I always say, I think my brother, poor thing, was like employee number one. I'm 8 years older, so he was always like just so cute and just such a people person. And he's just like the greatest thing ever. And I mean, we still work together and love him. But we would go to the beach in the summer and I would find shells. And of course I would make these, I'm sure at the time there were these ugly necklaces.
Uh-huh.
And I would make these, collection of necklaces. And then I'd have him go selling them on the beach to people.
Wow.
Nice.
And since he was, like all of 4 or 5 years old, no one was going to
Everyone
tell him
would buy
no.
it, yeah.
So everyone would buy our necklaces.
That's amazing.
And we'd come back counting, and then I'd be like, okay, well, this part's yours. This is mine because I made and I found the shells. And he's like, okay.
It's the 80-20 rule, right? You know how this
Exactly.
shit works.
Like, I'm taking all the risk finding all the shells.
That's awesome.
Classic little brother, like go sell this shit and bring me the money.
And he was perfect. He was shameless.
That's
He was
amazing.
great. He would go out there and just sell them happily.
Very cool.
So you were working in the lawyer's office in high school, or when it?
In
Okay,
the summers.
cool.
Yeah, in the summers. My parents were really cool. They said I had one job, and my number one job was to make sure that I got good grades.
Yeah.
Because my parents were super education. My parents only went to high school. I'm the first person in my family to go to college and graduate from college. Subsequent to that, of course, my brother went to college. My mom actually ended up going back to college.
You graduated from Penn, right?
I did. I graduated from Penn, from business school there. I went to Wharton.
You started saying that the Coral Gables High School believed in you more going to college than you did. You were like, where do I go? Were they the ones that pushed you to apply to Penn? And
Yeah, they did. It was one of those things that when it came time, I think it was like my junior or senior year, it was, where do you go to school and where am I going to go? Nobody in my family had really ever gone to college. So imagine, Cuban Catholic girl saying, I'm leaving Miami.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like,
That's a big
"Ooh,
no-no."
where are you
Yeah.
going?" Not my
are you allowed?
Yeah.
Is this legal?
But no, and I always think back, I would say my biggest fan was always my dad.
Yeah.
My dad did not see me any different than if I was a guy or a girl. Like, he didn't treat my brother any differently than he treated me. He had the same expectations, expected me to fight back. Actually, to the extent I fought with him far more than my brother did. So I would say I always kind of just grew up. I didn't see a difference. It was more, we just didn't know better. We didn't know where you went. So I had my activities director and some of my teachers and professors. I think it was about my junior year that they started asking, Lissette, where are you thinking about going to school? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And then they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. And I thought maybe I wanted to study business because I also knew that I had to make money. Like, there was no way that, I could take a 12-year career.
It didn't sound like your parents came from a lot of
No. My parents had nothing. They claim, typical immigrant story. But the one thing that they stressed was education, because they would always tell me that although communism took away everything from them, the only thing that communism could never take away from me was my education and my character.
Yeah.
And that was what they instilled every single day. It was, your character and your education. So your word is the only thing you have. And then my education. So they said all I had to do was study, and that was my number one job. And as long as I was getting my, straight A's or whatever I was getting, that they had no expectations of me to work, that they would pay for my expenses. And they really did. So they didn't put pressure on me that way. And I'm grateful for that, because that was the greatest inheritance they could have left me.
But you still took the initiative and got jobs at law firms.
Yeah. That's just kind of how I'm wired.
Yeah.
If I love something, it doesn't feel like work. Today, it doesn't feel like work. Back then, I'm sure if you told someone, you're doing faxes all day long, they probably, they wouldn't have liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I would hear the conversations and what am I faxing about? And by the way, it also told me some of the things that I was like, oh, I don't want to be like this guy.
Yeah.
I don't like what he does. So it was neat. It was a great experience. And it also taught me the value of a dollar. I knew what I could spend money on, and I knew what I couldn't spend money on.
Yeah.
So it was one of those that is, I think when you struggle and then it's really hard to forget where you come from.
Yeah.
Because I remember the days. I mean, there was absolutely no privilege. I mean, in my mind, I thought we were rich because I had my mom, my dad, my grandparents, and school, and I had food and roof over my head. But we went on a vacation to Miami Beach once a year.
Yeah.
That was kind of our big vacation out in Sunny Isles.
Yeah.
Not the Sunny Isles of today. It was the Sunny Isles of back then.
You gotta go stay at a hotel up there, or
Hotel is a very kind word.
okay,
I-
motel maybe.
Motel, like
Sure.
those little
But
two-story.
you still, it feels like a little staycation. You felt like
It
you
was
got
so
away.
much fun.
Yeah.
All my cousins and I went.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And like the people we met through the years going there, like I'm still friends with some of those kids. And it was fun.
Yeah.
We didn't know any better. We didn't know that there was, summer homes and that you could use summer as a verb. Oh, because I summer here, or I summer there. For us, summer was, from the end of school to the beginning of school again.
And
That
you were probably just as happy as the kids if not happier than the summer home people. Like, when
it
you don't know what you're missing, you're
This was perfect.
everyone's
I mean,
great.
I look back and I had, It was a great childhood. I played kickball on the streets.
Yeah.
When our neighbor's dad whistled down the street in Westchester, that meant every single one of us had to run, and go home.
Yeah.
I drank water from a hose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
You
the
know,
best water still.
I would bathe my dog with palm olive. Like there was no dog groomer that showed up at my house. That was my job.
This soap is good enough.
Yeah. I mean, I would get the palm olive, soap them up, and call it a day, and that's how I bathed them.
Yeah.
You know?
So you made it up to Philadelphia. You were there for 4 years.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. So it was one of those moments.
Because this is like, so did you get a scholarship?
I didn't. Unfortunately, my idyllic childhood, though, came to a crashing halt my senior year
Of college or high school?
of high school. My perfect world, or my world, as as perfect as I thought it was, because I had two amazing parents, two very loving parents, like that. I'm everything because of them. My dad died in an accident,
Wow.
and so I think that's kind of where I grew up overnight, and I was now like, second mom to my little brother who was 8 at the time.
Definitely.
And I was in high school. Luckily, my dad did see me get into college. He never saw me graduate from high school, but he did see me get into college. And so that perfect world, came crashing. But one of the things that my dad very intelligently did, and again, my dad's the smartest man I ever knew. That man could do math in his head better than anybody I knew. And by the way, he's the one that had me fall in love with real estate in the first place. He built like these little tiny townhouses. I still drive by them every once in a while, and I'm like, that's the American dream.
It's
You know,
incredible.
that your mom was, a maid. You went and built 2 and 3 townhouses, and today,
But was he developing them, or was he?
yeah, he was developing it.
Yeah.
Like he'd buy a little lot and put like 3 little townhouses and so forth.
So that's where it started.
It
The
did.
hustler.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was probably his employee number one, because I loved going with him on Saturdays, and just kind of sit there and see what he was doing and what he's talking about. And then to see kind of the next generation build high rises. I mean, it just it's amazing, and only in America does that happen. But I think about that. So my senior year, as I'm kind of deciding where am I going to apply, one of my counselors, my teachers, they started saying, have you thought about the Ivy Leagues? And you're like, what?
Did you cross the SAT?
Yeah, I did well.
I like how you're modest about that.
I did fine.
Yeah.
I did, it was good enough. And so it was, where am I going to go? And I'll never forget. So we opened up a book, and I was like, so what's the number one undergraduate business school? And we go down there. I'm like, oh, there's this place called Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania. I think I want to go there.
Had you
Sounds
traveled?
cool.
Had you traveled much outside of Miami?
No.
No.
No, not too much. No, I had never been to Wharton. I had never, I mean, by probably middle school, I did go to Beaver Creek to see snow,
Okay.
and that was pretty cool. I did that like 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
So that was fun. And I did go with my aunt to Europe,
Okay.
like on one of those 25 countries in 10 days
Yeah.
on a bus.
Nice.
It was fun, though.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
By the way, it might as well have been a private jet, because it was like
Yeah.
the coolest thing ever.
Ben, you know what they say in real estate: if people don't know you, they're not doing business with you.
Exactly. That's why the Built World podcast works with top of mind public relations, because being a best kept secret sure doesn't pay the bills.
Paula Uspa Abbott, the brains behind Top of Mind PR, is a former real estate journalist, so she knows exactly what makes the media pay attention.
And let's be real, getting in the press isn't just about bragging rights. It's about building credibility, landing deals, and making sure the right people know your name.
Whether it's top-tier media coverage, killer storytelling, or just making sure you're the one people think of first, Top of Mind PR has you covered.
Want to stand out? Hit up topofmind-pr.com or email info@topofmind-pr.com.
Because in real estate, if you're not visible, you're invisible.
So I went with my aunt to see 25 countries in 10 days. And that was a lot of fun. But so we just kind of went down the list, and we're like, all right, well, this sounds like a good option, the
But
Wharton School.
Why business and not like a law-oriented?
Because I did figure out that if I didn't want to go to law school, and I did kind of more of a liberal arts major, what kind of job was I going to get after 4 years? And then when I thought about it, I was like, at least with a business degree, I'll be able to graduate and go kind of work with my dad or help my dad and think about that. So I applied early decision to the Wharton School.
Oh,
And the teachers, they were like, we really haven't had someone get in like 10 years in Gables history, but
wow.
let's take a shot at it.
Yeah.
And that was back then. Like now you kind of film your reaction on a laptop. Now back then it was me by myself waiting for the mail lady to arrive on the day that you were supposed to get the letter. And if you got a fat envelope, you were admitted. And if you got a skinny little letter, you probably were not accepted.
Yeah.
So when that mail lady got there, I thought I was going to tackle her. And I'll never forget, it was a Saturday. And I just yanked it, and I see this giant envelope from the University of Pennsylvania.
oh yeah.
And I'm like shaking. And as I'm opening, I'm reading. And of course, there's like no cell phones back in the day or anything. So I'm by myself at the mailbox, and I'm screaming, hugging the mail lady. And she's like, what is wrong with this woman? What's wrong with this girl? And then, so the rest is history. That was just amazing. And then I arrived to Penn wearing, I'll never forget, it was, supposed to be cold. People told me Penn was cold.
Yeah.
So I arrived with this heck of a parka on.
And then-
That was my old ski suit.
End of summer.
Yeah, I arrived in September wearing a ski jacket and jeans and penny loafers, because that was all, that was the trend back then. And I'll never forget, someone took pity on me, and they're like, Lissette, that's probably not the best thing, to wear here. The penny loafers, as soon as there's snow, you're going to slide all over the place. And that parka's probably, that was outdated 10 years ago. So, but I got to Penn, and I was there, and it was just an amazing, incredible opportunity.
And you stayed at Penn for only 4 years?
I stayed at Penn for 4 years. I was at Wharton for 4 years.
And then after Penn, did you come back to Miami?
No, so I did Penn, and I was supposed to graduate in 3, but anybody that's gone to college
Wants to go 4.
wants to go 4. Who wants to leave after 3 years?
I mean, I
It's so much
knew
fun.
some guys that wanted 5 years out of it.
Yeah, my parents, my mom would have killed me. She's like, you ran out of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there is no money left. Like you have exact, my dad had left insurance for me,
Yeah.
and so I used my insurance to.
Pay for college.
Yeah, so I used literally my inheritance to pay for my
Yeah.
college, but it was great. It was fine.
Yeah.
I couldn't have spent that money better.
No debt.
No debt.
Good.
No. But back then college was very different
Yeah.
than it is today. Now
Yeah.
it's just
Wild.
prohibitively.
Yeah.
Back then it was actually somewhat doable. I actually managed to graduate with extra money
Yeah.
because I figured out that if I took like 6 classes one semester and 1 class the next semester, 2 classes, it was still full time over the course of the year, but then I only paid full tuition and half tuition. And so
right.
every year I would like be able to save a little bit of, half the tuition.
Nice little
that
arbitrage
semester.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would load up on like 6 or 7 classes one semester and then the other semester. So, there was always that entrepreneurial side that was
Yeah.
kind of fun. And so I did that. And then, so after 3 years, I was doing finance, which is what every person that's with math, that does, it's good at math does. And then I did multinational management because I love traveling. And I guess, it was always inside of me that I loved history and travel and all of that fun stuff. So I went there, and on my 3rd year, they said, "Oh, congratulations, you're set to graduate." And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not." And so they said, I asked, how do I stay a 4th year? Obviously, just not bumming around. And they said, well, you could pick up a 3rd major. And I was like, that sounds like a great plan.
So what was the 3rd?
Real estate.
Okay. Oh, cool.
It was real estate. And it clearly was in my blood because when I had to choose which major I had to walk with, you have to pick one of your majors that you walk with. I walked with real estate. So clearly it was the best one.
Yeah.
And there I met, my mentor, my friend, my professor, still a great friend today, still my mentor, Dr. Peter Linneman. I was his teaching assistant, and, and rest is history. I mean, Penn really was, Coral Gables was really kind of the launch,
Yeah.
out into the real world. And then Penn just really kind of catapulted me.
And so after you graduated, you moved back to Miami?
Nope, I went to New York. I was an investment banker.
Oh, wow.
I was a banker at DLJ, or as I like to think of it, DLJL.
Is that what it felt like?
It felt like that.
We were locked up.
I worked 140 hours a week. I slept on a FedEx box under my desk. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to be great at this because I just don't like it.
Yeah. How long did you do it for?
A year, a very long year,
Uh-huh.
like dog years. And so I did that. And I remember my mom went up to visit me and she looked at me and she's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate it, but I feel like a failure. If I leave, I can't believe it. And so I said, Mom, I can't leave. I mean, I've worked so hard to get to where I am. It's such a letdown if I leave, if I leave after a year. And the next thing I know, again, different times, I open my mailbox like 3 days later and there's a one-way ticket to Miami.
Oh, wow.
And
Your
that was
mom
her.
like, I'm rescuing my daughter.
Well, she's like, "I'm rescuing
Yeah.
you. You're done." And so I came back here, and at the time, I was supposed to work. I was just going to be here for a short time.
So at this point, you're 23 years old.
I am 21.
21.
Yeah, I graduated a little bit early.
You're back.
Actually, I was 22 at that time. I graduated at 21. I would have been 22 by
So you're back in Miami at 22?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fresh out of jail.
fresh out of jail. Fresh out of jail. I was really good at Excel modeling, though, and I could run some financial analysis. I was good at that.
You got some practice.
Yeah, I had some practice, in a year or so. I could do that. But I knew I wanted to do real estate. And I had one of my summers, I probably met one of my other mentors. And that was the summer in college. We talked about kind of did I work during high school. But during college, it was more strategic as to, what I wanted to do. And along the way, it kind of taught me about what I didn't want to do. So, of course, the summer after my first year, I worked at a law firm. After college, I was like, I don't think I want to do this. And that's really kind of when the pivot happened. Then I worked the summer after my sophomore year for who I still think is the greatest, one of the greatest bosses I've ever had in my life and who I still try to emulate. And that's Adolfo Enriquez. He was, it was called Bankers Trust back in, no, it was called Nations Bank. It was Nations Bank. It's then subsequently got through different, but Adolfo was just a great mentor. I worked for him over the summer. And so I had, and when I went to graduate, he asked me if I wanted to come back. And I said I didn't want to do commercial banking. And I went, to New York. But of course, he was one of the first calls that I ever made when I came back. And I said, Adolfo, what should I do? And so ended up from Adolfo pointed me in the direction of real estate developers. I told him he'll go unnamed, but there was a man that told me that I needed to be a banker because there was no place for women in real estate development. It only made me want to do it more.
Yeah,
I bet.
Yeah, only made me want to do it more. So Adolfo put me in front of just some incredible people. And I interviewed with incredible people. Ended up working with Manny Medina for a year.
Oh, cool.
But that's when he was pivoting to technology.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't kind of upend my entire life and really think about that to go into technology. I really want to do real estate development is what, my heart is set at. And I got a call from George Perez. And, from there I kind of started. And that's...
And how did you get connected to...
Adolfo.
Oh, he connected you.
Adolfo connected me. Adolfo connected me to Manny. Adolfo connected me to George and to several others. And, Adolfo called George and said, I've got... She worked for me, and would you like
I can
to meet her?
vouch. Yeah.
Yeah, I can vouch for her, and he did, and he put me in contact with George, and it was a wonderful ride with George, and that's probably I would say the third mentor I had outside of family. And George, is brilliant, smart, high expectations, doesn't expect anything from you that he doesn't expect from himself. And I think I operate in the same way.
And how long were you with Related?
I was twice. I worked twice with Related.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I did. I started as an assistant project manager, literally like vacuuming floors. I didn't care. I was just so happy to be in the door that I was clicking my heels just to be there. And so I started as an assistant project manager. By the time I left, 2 years later, 3 years later, I was reporting directly to the exec vice president at the time. And so it was neat because my office, and I always try to tell people this, like I try to tell kids and I try to tell the next gen, I'm like, there's no elevator to success. You got to take the stairs.
Yeah.
There's just no free ride. And I sat between George's office and the exec VP. I mean, I sat in a bullpen. So it definitely was not a fancy office by any stretch of the imagination. And so whenever George would walk by, he'd ask me, hey, how are you? Have you seen so-and-so? Have you seen so-and-so? What do you think about this? And then he would ask me, can you come with me on a Saturday to come see a site? And can you come after hours to go see this? And I said yes to everything. And so, it just kind of, assistant project manager, became project manager, became, reporting directly to the exec VP. And then about 2, 3 years into it, my mom approached me. She had done an investment, and she said, "I think I need your help." We really I invested in this project of real estate. It's hit a little bit of it's kind of hit a little bit of a snag. And given what you know, she's like, "I'm willing to give you, a part of the project, of my part, if you come in and try to turn this around." And
What was the project? Can you talk about it?
yeah, it was a Hope Six disposition project, and so she wanted me to be involved in it. So it was 300 townhomes, and that we had bought from the federal government, and it was kind of a whole phase rehab and sell them. So it was her in partnership with several people, but she said, I really want you to look for my interest and really look, how do you brand this, market this, how do you build this, the finishes and all of that. So I did that. And, I had done that. And I also, and in those years and during my pen years and the money that I saved, it wasn't that I was really saving it. I just kind of allocated it towards different, expenses. And I used it to travel. So every summer I would travel. I mean, I would fly the most random airlines. I did not care. I would take the middle seat in the middle section, that doesn't even sit back.
By the bathroom.
Yeah, it did not matter, but I was getting to Europe
Yeah.
somehow. My friends and I were getting to Europe, and it was fantastic. So during those years, I had, and really kind of that's where the Neo story begins, and that's kind of where the brand begins, and kind of where everything starts. So during those summers, I would always travel. So I would go to London, and I'd see kind of the river in London, the Thames. Then I'd go to the Paris, and I'd see Paris, and I'd see the Seine River. And then you were in New York, and you'd see kind of the Hudson going right through the city. So every city that you ever traveled to, there was like this river was kind of at the heart of every great city. And I moved back to Miami, and I'm working for George at the time, and my mom had this project, and I was helping. I mean, it was that really was of the catalyst. It was just kind of what sparked this. My mom needs my help. I've got an obligation to help her, but really, what my dream was to do it on my own, because I kept saying there's a need for people like me. Here I was, this Wharton educated kid, had a great job with George, super happy. I did well. I was paid fairly, and there was nowhere I could live. I couldn't afford to live in the cool condos on Brickell. Like, that was completely out of my price point. I couldn't, I didn't want to live out in the suburbs and commute an hour and a half every single day on my best case. So I knew that there was a place for someone like me at that price point, that there was these young professionals, that there was this entire market that was missing. So I combined it with, when I was living in New York, I've always liked living kind of a little bit differently, or just kind of what people aren't thinking. So I lived in Soho at the time, but we lived in this really cool 2-story like loft, building, and it had no walls, and it was just cool. And it was my roommate and I just, it was just an amazing time that year that we lived there. And it was fantastic. So I lived in this really cool loft, and, I had seen the world. So while I was with George, I kept thinking to myself, there's a need for just kind of cool housing for people like myself along the backs of the Miami River. We need to change the paradigm. At the time, if you wanted waterfront, it was either ocean, so Miami Beach, or waterfront, Biscayne Bay, but the river was something that nobody thought about as riverfront.
Yeah.
All right, I'm hesitant to even share this next sponsor because honestly, it's going to make our competition even tougher. This is some real insider intel.
Yeah. If you're in commercial real estate and still buried in spreadsheets and busy work, listen up, because CRE Task Wizard is about to change your life. It changed ours.
This isn't some generic virtual assistant service. CRE Task Wizard was founded by former brokers Elijah and Kevin, so they actually get what brokers need.
Which is less admin, more deal making. Your teams handle research, data entry, listing management, lease abstracts, basically all the annoying stuff that eats up your day and nobody likes to do.
Imagine not having to update listings, dig through lease terms ever again. Even cold calling, you can focus on closing deals. They handle the rest.
And the best part, it's efficient, affordable, and built specifically for CRE brokers.
Want to reclaim your time and make more money? Go to CRETaskWizard.com and let the wizard work its magic.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really how Neo was born. I took the money that I had made through bonuses with George, that I had saved. So in that entire story, what was interesting was that I didn't live, I couldn't live on Brickell. I didn't want to live, I didn't. So I did the very unsexy thing and I lived at home.
Yeah, but you're saving money,
I saved money.
you know?
I did. I did. I saved, I was able to save. So I took those savings that I had made and I put my first piece of land under contract with that money. And that's where Neo Lofts stands
And
today.
this is when you were at Related, or is
No,
this
it's
when you were
When I left, that was when I left. That was 2000.
okay?
I left Related about 2000.
And that's when you left Related to go
Help
help your
my
mom.
but really, it was to help her. But I said, if I'm going to really make this leap, it's not to kind of just do this. If
Yeah.
I'm going to really kind of take this kind of leap, it's to build my own thing. And I was like, well, by that time I was doing for George Gables Grand Plaza, and I was doing the Yacht Club at Brickell, and I was doing St. Andrews at Boynton Beach, and, I was doing St. Andrews in Wellington, and I was doing these jobs on my own. So naive me was like, well, if I'm doing them for George, I guess I could do this for myself. Never realizing I didn't have his balance sheet,
Yeah.
which of course was probably one of the greatest challenges. But notwithstanding, I used that money that I had and put Neo Lofts under contract,
Land.
the land,
Yeah.
in 2000.
The whole piece?
Yeah.
So you use the money for like escrow, basically.
And it was an escrow.
And how many days due diligence did you have?
Back then it was a little bit different. I had until I had site plan approval.
Oh, wow. So you had an open-ended DD period.
Open-ended with a certain, time frame at some point, and I had a great seller at the time, and
That does not exist anymore.
no.
Everyone's F you pay me today.
Yeah, he was fantastic, and he believed in me. He actually ended up buying a unit at Neo Lofts.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So
So you had an idea to build this building. You identified the land. Was it for sale actively, or did you find it off market?
no, it was for sale, but it was
No one
completely
cared.
blighted. Nobody
Yeah.
cared. It was an old warehouse, candle making warehouse, and so I just knew that there was this just incredible opportunity if people kind of changed the paradigm of what it was and kind of put on a different lens.
How much did you pay for the land?
1.6 million.
Dang.
How big was it?
It was just under 2 acres.
Okay. Nice site.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's a
though.
big piece.
Yeah.
And did you have like a whole business plan going into it before you put it under contract?
Yeah,
or-
I had a whole business plan.
Okay. So you already had like comped out, like, was it for rent or for sale?
It was for sale. It was
Okay.
the first condo.
So you already had an idea of what you could sell the units for?
I
and-
had, comped it out. I had done everything. I mean, it was something in my mind that I had wanted to do. But of course, there was not one study that kind of supported my thesis.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did
Back then it was the middle of nowhere, basically.
and you did the reports and people were like,
Oh, I don't
You were setting the market. So you're fighting that uphill battle of there's no comps, but we can sell this, I promise.
we can sell this. So what I went to do is, I'll never forget, I went over to the Globe. And that was the Globe was, back in the day, that was like,
Coral Gables?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, on
the
Alhambra.
bar, yeah.
yeah.
You probably
was-
crossed paths there.
Yeah. And that was my hangout.
Yeah.
And so I was at the Globe, shamelessly,
Yeah.
and I had a survey. And I was asking people, point blank, if you had to live somewhere, and I gave you this, what would convince you to move here? And it was, it was people saying the price point. It was saying if it was a cool, different concept. It was saying views. And along the way, there was something else. And now it seems obvious, but it wasn't so obvious back then. A lot of us had dogs. And I had my 165-pound son that I loved more than life. And there was nowhere, there was no building that was going to take him. So I knew if I created not just like, we allow dogs, but we actually embrace dogs. So Neo Lofts has the first dog park.
Oh, cool.
So we created like a whole dog park, and, we really kind of catered to the needs of, very, basically everybody that, was like me, that looked like me, that was going through the same thing I was, that was starting off in their career and wanted something cool, fun. And, things were beginning to happen. The beach was happening, things were happening, and we wanted to be, in the heart of it. So, and Neo Lofts was born, and went out. Peter Linneman from Wharton helped me raise my institutional equity.
How much did you raise?
Back then, I want to say we probably raised like $7 million, $8 million.
Just based on the business plan and the site.
It was based on the business plan. I got a construction loan. I always say it was a lender that knew me from my Related days.
Uh-huh.
That was, it was a lender that knew me from my Related days. And so he believed in what I was doing. And I knew I just needed one lender. I mean, the same way I tell you that it was one lender, the story was really far worse than that. I probably got, told no by 40 people.
Lenders.
Yeah, lenders and equity people. I mean,
Right.
people are like, a condo with no walls? Absolutely not. That's going to be a flop. The Miami River, nobody wants to live on the Miami River. Oh, that neighborhood, that's not. I mean,
Plus, are you personally guaranteeing this?
I was personally guaranteed.
$20 million.
Yeah, but I didn't have $20 million.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if they look at your financial statement, it's kind of like today that'd be, it's hard to find bankers willing to take a swing.
I have $20 million.
Yeah.
So.
Sure, I'll sign.
It's me and the dog. My net worth is the dog and I. But no.
And no pre-sales, right?
No, we did.
Okay.
Well, that was my market study, and that's what I would tell people. So I went and had architects that kind of believed in what we were doing. Larry Bean, he was fantastic, and we started. We built something, and I went out to do reservations, and I'll never forget. It was 199 units. I think within 60 days, I had all the units sold out.
But hold on a second. Let's back this up because that's pretty crazy. This is what year?
This is going to sound crazy. 2001, all of this is happening.
And you managed to sell almost 200 units in how many?
It was like not sell. I put them under reservation.
On reservation.
60, 90 days.
And what materials are you using at this time? Because that's a different era. There's no was there 3D models? Like, what were you showing people? There's no renderings.
There was like photocopies from Kinko's back in the day.
That's what
whatever the
that's what you're selling.
The architect was giving me floor plans. He was giving me some, renderings.
Did you hire a sales team?
No.
How'd you sell these?
My mom is a licensed broker.
Okay.
By then she was a licensed broker, but more on the retail side. So she was at the front of this, and I was behind it, also selling it. I was wearing all the hats at that moment.
Who are you selling these to?
Word of mouth. It got around. It was people that were attorneys, people that were, lenders, people that from the globe. It was people that were in technology at the time. That was
mostly domestic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was domestic and locals.
You think it was a price point thing that
It was absolutely. It was
that velocity of sales.
Yep, it was a price point thing. I'll never forget. My least expensive unit was $199,000.
Wow. Price point and location, because to be that proximate to.
I mean, and you were just right across the bridge into kind of everything that was going on. And then what was interesting, again, it wasn't as random. Remember, Publix had just happened in Mary Brickell Village. The new Publix was happening on 7th. We had a fantastic mayor in Manny Diaz, and he was making a big push to clean up. Remember, there was the whole dredging of the Miami River was happening.
Yeah.
We also had the Miami River Walk, and Manny, as we were kind of talking through it and the importance of kind of public-private working and collaboration, the first phase of the Riverwalk went right in front of Neo Lofts. So it really was, people were able to envision what was going to happen there.
Yeah.
And it was the visionaries that really came in early, and, good for them. They did well. And, great stories were there, were made there of people that got married. I still have my unit there. I hope my daughter takes it one day.
You just rent it out?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's rented out, but I love that unit. Whenever it turns, I kind of go up there and I just sit up there.
Check it out. Yeah.
Well, and every once in a while, I'm tempted not to rent it out, just because that could be like my woman cave.
Yeah, exactly. Meditation zone.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, it's the corner. It's 2 stories. It was exactly the loft that I had in New York.
Oh yeah, cool.
And it overlooks kind of just down the river the whole
Right.
time. It's really cool.
Which has changed so much.
It is. Oh,
it's crazy.
It's a totally different.
Especially since 01 or 02.
Yeah, and so we all know what happened in September of 2001. Unfortunately it was 9/11, and that was real scary. So trying to raise a construction loan at that point.
Oh, I bet.
It was hard, but fast forward on May 20th of 2002, I broke ground on my first high rise on my own. And the only reason I remember it because it was my 28th birthday.
Wow.
20th birthday.
28th. It was my 28th birthday that I broke ground on my first high rise. And that was Neo Lofts.
And so you get Neo Lofts completed. You said you went back to Related?
I got Neo Lofts completed.
Oh, and I have a question about Neo Lofts. The capital stack. Typically, the sponsors are required to put up a certain amount of equity. How did you get around that? Was that your savings or was that?
Oh no, I didn't have that.
Because like the LPs that you raise are like, oh, it's always like a 90-10 thing
Yeah,
or something
so
like that.
friends and family.
Okay, so you're really
You really clubbed it out.
Right.
50,000 you,
right.
75,000 you. I mean, I'll never forget. It was a total of $900,000 that we
For
had
the
to-
sponsor side.
Yeah. We had to put up 900,000. So, my little 100,000 got me,
Right.
enough to put the escrow.
Right.
And then, everybody else kind of put the friends and family put, the rest I was able to, people I knew from high school, parents that knew of me.
That's where condo development's so interesting because you already had the reservation, so you already had proof of
I did. I had
that it was going to
concept.
work.
I
Basic
had
product market fit was there, so it was backing into the financing
Yeah,
basically.
it was proof of concept.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we did that. Went on to do Neo Vertika, where the old Betty K was.
Is that where American Social is?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought was your first project, and I looked it up when we were researching you and realized the one right north of Miami River Inn was the first one.
Yes, the Miami River Inn.
Neo Vertika was the second one.
Neo Vertika.
Got it. Similar open floor plan concept, right?
2
With the
stories,
lofts.
very much inspired by Le Corbusier, History Junkie. It was super cool. That building is so pretty. It's so organic.
More units, right? That's like 400.
443 units.
A big dog.
Yeah, that's 400.
Was that number 2 after Neo
Yeah,
Lofts?
that's at 36 stories. Yeah, Neo Lofts was 199 units, 21 stories.
Got it.
And then Neo Vertika was 443 units in 36 stories.
Same business plan. Undercut the competition,
Mhm.
open floor plans,
Yep.
pre-sell,
Yep,
knock it out.
yep.
And so you just kept doing these?
Just kept, doing them and kind of evolving and making one, each one different. Along the way, I got married, had kids,
How many kids do you have?
3 girls,
3 girls. Wow. What ages?
18, 19, and 20.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. It's
That's a handful.
I'll-
Back to back, huh?
back to back. I will build 15 buildings before. And it's much easier than dealing with those 3.
I bet.
But yeah, so along the way, and then in end of 2014, George approached me and said if I could, for about 2 years run strategy for him. So by then, we had done all the condos and we had another one going up at enough of an infrastructure that it was just, it was being, it was running smoothly. And I've just always had crazy respect for George.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be fun for 2 years to work alongside him.
And you didn't have any projects going on at that point.
I did. I had one,
Yeah.
and he knew about it. Full disclosure, and I stepped away from that. My brother was able to handle that. Kind of, the team in place was able to handle that,
Yeah.
and went on to work with George. For 2 years. Kind of president and running strategy for him. So
What does that mean, running strategy?
it was more like, kind of globally, like how do you think about the business and, where do you shift the business to and kind of where do you allocate resources and are there new markets that you should go to? Are there markets that you shouldn't go into? So it was fun.
A
Cool.
lot of studying.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I like that. I like that
And-
analytical.
Yeah,
And, I always say you don't make money on the sell, you make money on the buy.
of course.
So you got to really think about it and study it. I can underwrite to anything, but at the end of the day, I got to live with it.
Right.
So it's kind of that analytical side, that math side.
And that was 2014. And how many buildings had you built up to that point?
By then I had built like 2,000 units.
Okay.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4.
All condos.
All condos.
Yeah.
I was all condos. I think that's the blessing and the curse of condos. Yes, you can have your proof of concept. The curse is that you give birth to this child. I mean, if you're like me, every single building means the world to you. And, you've got, you put your heart and soul into it. And then once it sells out and you turn it over to the condo association, you really don't have much impact on the building, nor do you have much impact on the neighborhood.
Yep.
And so that was, one of the things that, as you kind of build these condos, you realize that, you kind of just turn them over and then they just kind of fly with their own life. And then, if you keep a unit, you kind of keep that connection with it. And if you don't, it just kind of becomes one more in the portfolio.
So what happened after you did the buildings? You went to work with George for a couple of years. After your stint at second stint at Related, what is that? What's the next phase look like? 2016 we're looking at?
It was 2017.
2017?
Yeah, it was 2017. And, there was one of those that I felt that once again, there was a need, to solve the workforce housing gap. I think everybody was kind of thinking along, kind of the luxury on the condo side, luxury on the apartment
It's
side.
Miami's favorite word.
Yeah.
Luxury.
Luxury. Everything is luxury.
Luxury.
And I just kept saying, what about the people that actually are the backbones of the cities? What about the teachers, the educators, the people that work in the hospitals? What happens to them? The ones that when I drive through a building, the lights are actually on.
Ben, you and I are all about PropTech. And if there's one tool we absolutely cannot live without for a commercial real estate brokerage business at Gridline Properties, it's Visda.
Absolutely. Vista is incredible. We use it every single day. And we're always wondering, how do they do this? Every evening we get an email from them with real-time closed transactions. No more waiting around for months for the property appraiser to finally update.
Yeah, whether you're doing industrial, retail, office, land deals, they have every closed transactions. And it's not just the speed, Ben. The details are on point. Seller and buyer info, contact details, phone numbers, emails, everything is accurate.
It's hands down our top prospecting tool to farm for warehouse deals in Hialeah. Visda keeps us one step ahead always. It's also the best way to search for comps when putting together opinions of values for clients.
Head on over to Visda.com and use code BuiltWorld and get 30 days free access today. VIZZDA.com.
And so in the back of my mind, I kept saying, I think we've got, this missing middle as I think about it. There's kind of that high-end luxury, that's being built too. Some of the true affordable with a capital A, was being built for. But that missing middle, I felt that there was just like this incredible demand for it and nobody was really meeting that. So in 2017, I had since left, Related. I had my 2 years, I had done my 2 years at Related. And I went off, I started in 2017, at the beginning of 2017. And I said, I've got this thesis. I think, we've got this, real issue that we need to solve for. Because I always think about, what am I solving for? Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I mean, it could be great, but unless it's solving a need, why am I really doing this? And I think, when you think about kind of the big, great companies of the world, they're always solving a problem. So whether it's the iPhone or this, it's solving a problem. And I said, what problem am I solving? So I was looking for kind of solving the problem of the missing middle. And that's really how it came. And that's kind of where the Neology kind of brand came. And I said, okay, where can I start doing this? So I've already redeveloped, it wasn't, 20 years ago, I said, I'm going to do the Miami River and I'm going to redevelop the Miami River. And I'm going to, kind of think about and reframe how people think about the Miami River. I mean, 20 years later, nothing gives me greater pleasure than kind of what you mentioned, to see the baccarat going on. 20 years ago, they would have said we were crazy. And when I would tell people I wanted to build along the Miami River, they said I was crazy. So started, kind of really did that, proved that we could take a market and think about it and really reimagine it and redevelop it and redefine it and create it into something incredible of a true destination. So in 2017, I said, where is that next Miami River? And for me, it was in Allapattah. I thought of Allapattah and I said, Allapattah is kind of the belly button that nobody thinks about. I mean, I've got mass transit running right through it. I've got the second largest health district after Houston, right, in the heart of Allapattah. I've got, downtown and the airport just to, downtown and Brickell just to the east. I've got the airport to the west. And I've got this incredible connectivity with roads. And I said, Allapattah is really an area that is the next frontier of development. Everything was already happening in Wynwood. Everything was happening in Edgewater. And I said, where can I go and create this missing middle? And that was Allapattah. I also bought, going back to the roots, I bought Pier 19, which was on the Miami River. It was further upriver than people were like historically, thought. But I knew it was a great value add opportunity. It was, it was being run in a different way than I saw it. I saw it as, kind of truly a luxury proposition that I could turn it around and make it for that missing middle. So we did that. And then just quietly started amassing land in Allapattah. And that's how really kind of the apartment side of the business began.
And that was your first apartment, the Julia?
No. In 2018, I acquired, so the first one to welcome residents is Pier 19, but that was a value add, which I gutted and redid, and that's 199 units on the Miami River, just next to Sewell Park. But what's interesting is that on 17th Avenue, I acquired, and it's called Number 17. It's never easy. I always think about this. I'm like, Lissette, God must really love you because, he throws these things and you must think you're really good at this because you're like, really? So I break ground on 17 in, I'll never forget, November of 2019. We all know what happens in March of 2020.
Nice.
And so had to plow through that and get that project delivered on time and on budget during a pandemic. And so got that project off the ground. That's Number 17. I leased that project up in 90 days.
Wow.
And tell us a little bit about that project.
That
How many units?
So that's 192 units, ground floor, walk-ups and amenities. It's 12 stories of, apartment living. It's part of my portfolio that I own. And it was really kind of the same way Neo Lofts was the catalyst, I think, for residential living along the Miami River. 17 did the same for Allapattah in terms of being the catalyst for, the residential renaissance of Allapattah. You combine that with, the Rubel Museum and Super Blue and everything else going on. I think it's, just like many things that happen on the Miami River, there's a symbiotic story to tell. And so that's 192 units, kind of in, I like to think of it as aspirational lifestyle. I always pride myself that you could pick up one of our buildings and put it in, any of the more traditional neighborhoods, whether it's Brickell, South Beach, Edgewater, and it would fit just fine. And so we did that building, and that building was delivered in April of 2021. And we delivered that. And again, it was 90-day lease up.
And that's like naturally occurring workforce, right? There's no like limits on rents or anything like that. It's not targeting certain AMIs.
Well, now with Live Local, we're thinking about it a little bit
I
different.
mean, we might as well take advantage of the tax break, right? You're probably below 120.
Yeah,
already.
so we think about it with Live Local.
Right. But you were before Live Local.
Yes, that project was not designed with Live Local, but we have been able to obtain Live Local on the tax side of it.
You should. That's great.
So-
And how does something like that pro forma? Did the numbers work back then in 2019, like the rents that you were targeting? Because that's always
Construction costs were also
Lower.
Construction costs have spiked, and that's probably one of the biggest hurdles. I think a lot of
Today,
people have.
right.
What are your construction costs? And construction costs have gone up exponentially. So we did that project while all of that was going on. I was working on Julia as well. So that project opened up in April of 2024. So we had that project open up in April of 2024. And that one also had under 6-month lease up. And that's 323 units.
That's fully leased already.
Fully leased.
Dang.
Actually, I have permanent financing on.
Yeah.
Well, I have it on 17, permanent financing. I've got permanent financing on Julia. And again, I'm sure as you know.
I mean, listen, we've been by the Julia. It's kind of a very pioneering, to put it lightly, area there. I mean, you have to have a lot of courage to build something because you're kind of setting the market there.
We're setting the market. And if, I invite anybody to come see that building. I mean, you could take that building and put it on Brickell and it'll go up against any building on Brickell. I mean, the amenities in that building are phenomenal, first class.
It's a beautiful project. My bigger question is kind of what I was asking before. The other one made a little more sense because closer to Jackson. How do you get the equity partners and I guess it's the deal to pencil when there's really no rent comps in the area, or were there, justifying the rents that you were targeting?
No, I just have to, like I tell everybody, I just have to be better than what's out there. And so I have to be a value proposition. So am I a value proposition to Wynwood? Am I a value proposition to driving out from Kendall?
Right.
Am I a value
Compared
proposition
to the proximate submarkets, this is the best value for you can't.
and if
You're not going to go pay $5 rents in Wynwood. You can come here and pay.
Exactly. And you may not be able to. You may want to, but you may not be able to.
Right.
Same thing. If you work in the health district, you really want to drive out an hour and a half because, that's where your comparable rent is going to be. So again, it's about being that value proposition and lease that up in 6 months, and we're under permanent financing there.
That's awesome.
So it's again, named after Julia Tuttle.
Oh,
So,
nice.
again, a little bit of history.
Yeah.
There's always, the Neology brand is really about kind of that aspirational lifestyle. It's about serving the backbone of every community, the engines that run our community. We're here to solve their need and work for them. And it's Neology really stands for that aspirational lifestyle. But although we do that as a brand and we think about who we are as a brand and everything is just kind of it, we can scale it, we can replicate it, wherever we do it, we can do it anywhere. What's interesting is that each one has its own authenticity. So the Julia was really kind of named after, the Julia. But how do we get them to pencil? I would say one of the big things that how we get them to pencil is our vertical integration. We're completely vertically integrated. So our entire life cycle, from beginning to end, ultimately to TCO, and then through the client experience, we control all of that. So, obviously we, buy the land, have all that underwriting in-house. We have general contractors in-house. So although we do partner with our general contractor, there's about 10% that we do in-house. So we take some of that.
Helps with cost control too.
Yeah, it helps with margins.
Yeah.
It's a margins game. And so we do that. And then, of course, from there, we hand it off to our management company that ultimately does all the leasing and management of the project. And I don't think anybody can do it better than they can in terms of both, kind of the client experience and in terms of the efficiencies that, we're achieving. We use a lot of, artificial intelligence. We use a lot of technology. Again, everything from, when you call, you're getting 24-hour service, but it's not really a person, it's AI, but they're trained, to work orders, to everything. It really just kind of goes through this system.
So go ahead.
I was going to ask, is this what you're targeting going forward? Is Neology now that you have Live Local to play with, are you seeing anything else open up? Like, is this the future for Neology, more workforce housing developments in these areas?
We are. This is our brand. We are here to solve that problem. And so as a brand, yes, that is a big part of our future, that aspirational lifestyle. But it's not just in Florida. Now, we're thinking about kind of the next steps and where we go next. So now that we've really set the foundation for it, it's really about kind of forward thinking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. Today we actually got TCO on our newest project. We just got TCO moments ago.
On what?
On the way here on 14.
Oh, yeah?
14 on Main. Yeah, on the drive here.
That's awesome.
The guys
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. The guys called to say we got TCO.
Good thing we're celebrating with a nice tour.
Right? Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
So it seems like you guys are going more towards the rental market than condo markets. Are you still doing condos or no?
No.
Are you out of the condo game?
We are. We everything we develop, we keep. So, it's really been a portfolio.
Cash flow.
Yeah, so we've been amassing, portfolio, we recapitalize and, we continue to, keep that portfolio going and moving forward.
And are you able to make these deals pencil, like for LPs today? Because that's the issue, that the recurring theme is the yield on cost that all LPs want to see is almost unachievable in Miami.
It's hard. You have to, you can't look at every deal. You got to kind of really look at them with a scalpel, and you have to dig in that deep. Is it more challenging to pencil? Yes. But, I think there's still, good deals to be had, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. It's like a needle in a haystack.
That's why, look, you see it in the starts. The start numbers are the start numbers.
They're down.
Yeah.
Big time.
But
significantly.
But you're about to break ground on Palmer Lake.
Mm-hmm.
So you're starting another project, and this is your biggest project yet.
It's 1,350 units, so that's the next area that we're gonna really redefine and reimagine.
Where is this one?
It's further up on the river, up on the west side of the river, right by the Freedom Park. We're catty corner, and just like the Miami River, just like Allapattah, Palmer Lake has its own kind of unique strengths. Why is Palmer Lake interesting? It is really truly the most transit-oriented submarket that is out there. You can arrive to Palmer Lake, of course, by car. You can arrive by train. You can arrive by plane. You can arrive walking. And you can actually arrive by boat because we have 800 linear feet of waterfront on the Miami River tributary. So that's four towers, 1,350 units.
You can actually take a boat there?
you can take a boat there.
Wow.
Yeah, there's going to be slips. So yes, you can go, and that's our newest project, and we're in the final stages of that project.
Incredible.
I'm just clicking through the images here. It looks awesome.
It is.
And so when are you breaking ground on this one?
Hopefully in the coming months.
Yeah.
We are in the final stages.
Question. Any concern about the tariffs and affecting construction costs on this?
You know, luckily I think we're far along on our construction agreements.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we're pretty far along with that. We actually did a study to see where we're sourcing. I think it was in the pandemic that we really pivoted to trying to source as much as we can from American.
Yeah.
So, from our cabinetry to our flooring, to our plumbing fixtures and all, ACs, we actually source a lot already American, including our steel. So we feel pretty good about that. And, but of course, the tariffs are out there, it's a longer runway. But we've got a good contract. We think we have a good contract in place.
Yeah.
So, but of course, it's something that is very much on our radar.
Yeah.
With our tariffs, and I think what are our tariffs going forward on new projects? Because some of the contracts that we have today may not be the contracts that we have going forward.
Yeah.
And why the shift away from condos? Is it just you're able to provide more affordable housing with rental, or what's the?
No, I think it's just a different business model. I think it has to do more with in owning the apartments, I have far more impact in neighborhoods. So I was really able to do what I wanted to do in Alapata by opening up 5 buildings in, 5 years. 4 or 5 years, I've been able to, so I really, between 21 and 25, I've opened up, 4 or 5 buildings in Alapata. So I really have been able to create the impact, because it's not just about opening them up. It's about engaging with the community. It's about engaging. No man is an island, and I think no building is an island. So, for example, I work very closely. When I started Neo Lofts, I worked very closely with the mayor's office to make sure that Jose Marti Park was great for the community and the lighting. And then when we did Pier 19, Sewell Park, that had been, wasn't that great. Those are 10 acres on the Miami River. We worked, again, with the mayor's office to make sure it was painted, and, new swing sets for the kids and everything, again, for that sense of community. Now we're kind of doing the same thing in Alapata, making sure the streets look nice, the sidewalks look nice, that there's no graffiti. So I think we have a lot more impact. And then as part of a business model, it just makes more sense to continue to portfolio our product that we're building. So it's just been a different model.
What's going on, Builties? Ben and Felipe here. I wanted to cut in and tell you guys what we're working on. Believe it or not, podcasting is not our full-time gig. We're commercial brokers here at Gridline Properties, focused on industrial. And we've really identified the submarkets of East Hialeah, Opelika, and Golden Glades.
Yeah, we're big believers in those areas. The industrial warehouse space has grown tremendously in the last few years, particularly out west. The developers have been building product in the 100,000 square foot range. These areas, particularly Opelika, East Hialeah, and Golden Glades, have smaller warehouses, and we think those are going to do extremely well in the next 10, 20, 30 years. There's always going to be a need for small businesses and smaller spaces close to the urban cores, so we're extremely laser focused on these areas. So if you have a warehouse in the area or looking to buy or lease, or if we can help you lease or sell your property, reach out to us.
Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of value in that area. Everyone's getting priced out of Doral, getting priced out of Little River and Wynwood, and Hialeah is kind of the last frontier. And it's a wild west out there. So come on for a ride with us. Hit us up. Build up that AUM.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, it's cool. Because most guys today, most developers building ground up today are going luxury condo. It's the only thing that really pencils, because your cost per foots are so high that you might as well just sell Baccarat residences, because that's the only thing that really pencils. Yeah. But it's cool to see people executing on the affordable side, because it's obviously still the biggest need here in Miami.
Yeah, and again, we're not affordable in the sense that
Right.
We're getting any kind of subsidies.
Not capital A affordable, right?
But
It's market rate affordable.
yeah, it's we like to think of it as aspirational luxury, and it's for the people that work in the city and want to have the same amenities as everybody else, but can't pay $9,000 for a 3-bedroom,
And don't want to live out in the burbs.
and don't want to live out in the burbs and commute. It's exhausting. If you're a medical resident and you're working 12 hours and you've got 8 hours before you have to be back at the hospital.
You want to be 20 minutes away, 10 minutes away.
You want to be 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
You don't want to commute an hour to get over to where you're going.
Are there any other markets in the U.S. that you want to share that you're looking at? Or
Hold on, let's talk about Miami first, and then talk about U.S. Any other interesting markets in the Miami area? Are you looking at Hialeah at all?
We don't have anything in Hialeah.
Any interest in Hialeah?
I think Hialeah is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing a good job there, but we don't have, we're not playing in Hialeah.
Anything else in the Miami?
In Miami,
so you're asking her to blow up her spots.
Yeah. In Miami, look, we're really putting, hyper focused on Palmer.
Yeah.
That area there.
Is Wena ever going to build this big project? The produce, isn't that what we call it? The produce project?
The produce. It's a great location. Selfishly, you kind of hope hometown stays around for a while.
Would hometown leave if you build it?
I mean, it is right over it, but
damn. Okay.
yeah. So selfishly, you're kind of just
I love hometown.
cheering on hometown, but there's still work to be done in Allapattah. I think there's still just incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that it works.
So you'll be sticking with what you know: Allapattah, the river.
We're in Palmer Lake now.
Yeah.
We like
That's
Palmer
a big
Lake.
project.
We just think that with everything going on at Freedom Park, and everybody just knows the soccer stadium.
Yeah.
There's actually like 900,000 square feet of office. City of Miami's moving their headquarters there, so there's a lot going on in that area.
Where's your office?
Our offices are in the Grove.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could just like roll over to roll out and head to Starbucks and roll right back.
And is the tree starting to look at stuff in California now too?
We have stuff out in, we're looking at not in California, but yes, on the West Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not in California per se, but yes, we're
So this is going to be your first foray out of Miami.
Well, we're looking right now. We're actively involved out of Miami already within Florida.
Okay.
Just not public yet. And then outside of Florida, yeah, that'll probably be the first foray outside of, because again, we've now, what we believe, we've perfected this brand. We've perfected this product. We're good at it. Our numbers speak for themselves. We've now, replicated it, 5-6 times, and we've made it work, and we continue to make it work. Again, like I said at the very beginning, it's a margins game. So we've got that down to how we staff them, how we run them, how we integrate technology, how we build them, the ratios that we use. It's all a mathematical formula in how we build these. And so now that, we're there, now is really kind of, the next chapter where we're just really growing that and, repeating that around the country.
That's really cool. And you guys self-manage too?
We do.
Okay. So that helps you prove your OpEx and everything else. You can
it helps us prove it, and it helps us achieve it.
Right.
Like I tell everybody, nobody cares about the NOI more than I do.
Right.
I'm not getting paid on, effective gross income, a percentage of that.
Right.
I'm really getting paid on my NOI. That effective gross income number is fine, but the NOI is really what we manage.
You're in a lot more control in that seat. So
we're controlling both sides.
Yeah.
We're controlling not just the income, but we're really controlling the expense side of it. And we make sure, but all of that done through a very client-centric lens.
Makes sense.
But it's having a lot of fun in the process. If I don't wake up every day and love what I do, I'm just not going to do it.
So it sounds like you're never retire.
I am never going to retire.
Yeah.
I tell them that.
Yeah.
I terrorize them at the office, telling them that every day. I'm like, I'm going to be here until you literally take me out in a car. Just letting everyone, be well aware that you will take me out of here.
We like to ask that question of all our guests.
Always.
I would say 99% of them are like, I'm never going to retire.
Yeah.
What would I do if I retired? I would drive everybody crazy, including myself. I mean, no, absolutely not. I am never retiring. I am going to terrorize the office.
All right, your daughter's coming up into the business?
2 out of 3 seem to think they are.
Oh, yeah?
The oldest one is at Cornell in the real estate program over there.
Hospitality or pure real estate?
Well, the way Cornell works is that real estate sits within the hotel school.
Cool.
So she's gotten an amazing experience there. She's forging her own path. She's going to be working in the summer for Blackstone in the real estate private equity. But has an interest.
Nice little boutique shop.
Yeah, so she's doing that, and she's excited to do that. So at least there's kind of that interest in real estate. She may never come back from New York, and and then I have another daughter that just recently accepted and is going to go to SCAD
Oh,
because she wants to do interior design
up
up in Savannah.
Savannah.
Such a cool place.
Such a cool town, right?
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Great eating.
Yeah.
And it's perfect, and she's so excited to be heading out there.
Cool.
So she's going to be heading out there in the fall.
And the baby?
And well, the middle one is along the lines of vet.
Oh, okay.
So she's the animal lover.
Gotcha.
She's the one that'll like manage the dog parks or something. She'll manage the dog parks. Her love is kind of on the vet side and the animal side. She's not too keen on the real estate side of it.
You have any hobbies outside of building giant buildings?
And driving Corvettes?
I love being on the farm. That is
Really?
my guilty
Oh,
pleasure.
you have a place up in Wellington, right?
I do.
Yeah. And
What kind of farm?
Equestrian.
Oh, cool.
It's an equestrian farm, and that is my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
You ride horses?
I do.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is so much fun. Like, it's just quiet. It's go out early in the morning, the sunrise, just, I don't competitively show jump or anything like that. That's definitely not me, but just like trail riding.
Horses are so cool. They sketch me out though. I don't know.
I love them.
They're so big
They're
and
so smart.
man.
They're so smart.
And
So
how often do you get up to Wellington?
I try to go up on Saturdays, like after work. I try to go up on Saturdays after work. Because Saturdays, like I'm a creature of habit. So my Saturday mornings, I like visiting, the operating sites and just see how they're going. How's it looking? How's the experience? So I kind of like to spend my Saturdays incognito. And then I drive up usually Saturday afternoons, get up there, and then come back Sunday.
The second you walk out in that field, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It used to be that I used to catch by surprise. Now it's kind of expected, but it just.
But just like the stress just melts away.
Oh,
like,
when I get
like,
out to Wellington, I say it as soon as I get off on that exit. It's like just
yeah.
like a change happens.
Freedom.
And as soon as I go inside that house, I'm like, oh. Although now we laugh because I catch myself having meetings up there.
Yeah, I bet.
My husband's like, I thought this was supposed to be the getaway. I'm like, well, now that everybody discovered that I work out of here too.
Right. We have internet here. It's a problem.
I do. No, I actually love hosting people up there. So, if I'm dealing with lenders, I'm dealing with anything, I'll work from there and, people will come by and I've got an office there and it
Super cool.
works. So that's what I love to do. And of course, traveling.
Horses and Corvettes does not sound like a Miami girl.
Yeah. Not at all.
That's like I grew up in Minnesota in the country, and that's what we grew up with.
Yeah, it's I think it's ever since high school. I don't think I'm someone you can really peg. You don't know. You're not exactly sure what's there. It's a dichotomy of sorts. Pink is probably my favorite color.
As I say, it matches the website. It's a good vertical integration here.
It's pink is absolutely my favorite color in
Hot
the world.
pink.
Hot pink. I definitely love hot pink. If you go to
Might have to throw a wrap on the vet.
yeah, I wanted to. I
On
actually,
brand.
like my regular car. I actually want to do that to my regular car.
Hot pink and black.
Yeah, imagine when I pull up to the job site in my
Yeah.
hot pink SUV.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be like crazy ladies here.
What did it? Was it Mary? What was that cosmetics company that would give?
Mary Kay.
Mary Kay. That's right. The pink
that was like-
Cadillacs. Yeah.
The pink Cadillacs. I'm gonna drive in the hot pink car. You'll find me down US 1. There's what's that.
Did you drive the Corvette today?
No.
Oh, I wanted to hear a burnout on the way out.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Just drop that clutch.
Yeah. No. Oh no. Yeah, you see me like coming down, main highway and stuff, and they're like, "We just saw you going down." I'm like, "Of course you did."
Love that. Well, this has been an absolute blast, Lissette. Thanks for coming down. And
Yeah.
Thanks for the tequila, and loved hearing your story.
Thanks for joining us up here. Quick question too, before we end. What is your typical day like? Do you what time do you get up and what time are you working till?
For me personally, I tell that to everybody. I'm like, you got to love what you do because I don't think there's really any more, off time and there's no live work balance. Everything just kind of blends together. So I usually wake up by like 4:35, the latest.
It's aggressive.
I kind of like that time. And so the first half hour I read.
What do you usually read?
Just kind of the headlines of all the kind of newspapers and the markets and what are they doing and so forth. My partner, he is out of Europe, so I think that works well. I, connect with him, kind of get that going. What are we talking about? And so we do that. And then I like to, work out for like 45 minutes. Not a big, I just go downstairs, work out for a bit. And then,
So you're a morning workout person, huh?
oh yeah. Well, just because my afternoons and my evenings are just, there's just, I could be anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, that's the only like structured time. I know I'm home between like 5 and 7. So that's when I can get that. And then
Are you doing cardio, weightlifting? What's your
cardio,
Yeah.
just cardio, some
Okay.
music. And then I like Pilates
Okay.
and then some Pilates down there. And so I do that. Now they don't need me as much, but actually taking my kids was the only time like that I would not answer my phone, because that was like the 20 minutes that I had with them throughout the entire day that, I would talk to them and catch up with them, like, how's your day going? What's going on today? So that was my guaranteed time. And then I like to get to the office pretty early because, after drop off, I got used to just what am I going to do? Go back home. So again, I catch my time, and then it's just, I know everybody says it, but there's just like no real typical day.
Yeah.
There's this dinner, that dinner, this event. Today was, we were dealing with TCOs and what's going on. We have lenders in town, partners in town, travel here, travel there, go see this, go see that. So
Keeps it interesting.
it does. And I don't feel like I work. And then, same thing at night, like I like to wind down on my laptop. So just kind of, checking my emails, what's going on.
How many people in your office now?
In our corporate offices, we have probably like 20 something.
Okay. And you're also on the University of Miami's Real Estate Advisory Board,
I am
and you've been doing that for several years now.
very proud of that. Yeah.
Have you recruited any talent from there?
We have not had anybody permanent, but we definitely, like to mentor a lot of them. We actually just had like a really cool team yesterday at our offices that we were working with that are doing a cool project in Alapata. So they spent the morning at our offices, kind of getting feedback as to what they were doing and what we're doing. So it's a lot of fun. I love kind of thinking about the next generation. We actually just launched this really cool program, Neology's WIRE program, and it's women in real estate. And it's for high school girls that are interested in, real estate. And it's a 1-week immersive program over the summer. Where they really, get to see all facets of real estate. They get to see all the different lines of business.
And they come into the office?
Yeah, they come to our
That's
office,
cool.
and they're there
For
a
high
week.
school students?
For high school girls, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
It's really cool. Women in real estate,
love it.
and again, I think it's our Neology's WIRE program.
And how are you getting the word out on that?
we just kind of got it out through, and then there's an application process, and then
Are you working with schools or?
yeah, the schools, it went out, and the interest was immense. We only picked 5.
Five people.
5 girls, yeah.
Oh, yeah, to go through the program.
Yeah, to go through the program because it's really hands on. They get they get the professional picture for LinkedIn.
Oh,
nice.
Taken. They they get some the mentorship. They go see the construction side of the business. They see the vertical, the management side. They see the interior design, and really the goal is that I hope to open some eyes, and hopefully I'm not the only woman around the table. In the next generation, hopefully some of them get inspired and interested in doing it because I actually think it's an amazing career. It's so much fun. Like I get to use my left and my right brain. Like I play with like human Legos all day long. This isn't a real job. My kids always say it. They're like, we love going to your office. They're like, it feels like it's always playtime there. And I'm like, it is.
That's awesome.
I'm like, when you love it, it doesn't feel like you're working. So it's really, really cool. I even take my dog. He likes it there
To
too.
the office.
Pet-friendly office.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
friendly office.
What kind of dog do you have?
I got him in the pandemic, and his name was Noah, and I just realized that it didn't work so well. So his name is Corona.
Corona.
And I like the so he's I don't know, he's 125 pounds of love. I have no idea what he is.
You love these big dogs.
I
huh?
do. I love the big dogs.
Was he a rescue or
He's a rescue, yeah, from the Miami-Dade Animal Shelter.
just a mutt?
Yeah, he's like, but he's the coolest, and he's smarter than
love
hell.
it.
And Corona is just human, and he follows me around everywhere I go. And he's like, I love her, and he sits in the front seat of the vet, and he's got these cute little goggles, and he wears them.
That's amazing.
Is this vet convertible?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. He wouldn't fit in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and it's like the old school radio,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because I tried to keep it as authentic.
How
as
many
possible.
miles on this?
It doesn't have that many. It only has like 5,000 miles.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah, the guy didn't drive it.
That's
Little
amazing.
5,000 miles?
Yeah, it has like 6,000 miles. It doesn't,
Holy shit.
and I drive it like every 2 weeks, and the farthest I'll go is Miami Beach.
Do you let your husband
Right.
drive this?
Yes, he's a hog.
He's a hog. I thought you were gonna say he doesn't know how to drive stick.
No, he's a hog. He takes to take it.
Yeah, I bet. I
Yeah.
want to take it.
And
Yeah,
whenever we got to dinner, he drives.
yeah.
Burnouts everywhere.
Yeah, so he actually is. I will give him credit. When I forget like to drive it around, he does drive it around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
He's like, well, so we got to keep it going. So
Keep the oil moving.
yeah, and probably the other thing that we love. I mean, who doesn't love living on Miami on the boat? Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's the water.
That changes everything.
It changes everything. I would say somewhere between the farm and the boat.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my downtime. We live in the greatest city. I look at Neo Lofts and I'm like, holy hell, like, look at this building built by a 28-year-old Hispanic immigrant female whose grandmother was a maid like 5 blocks away at the Sheraton Four Ambassadors. Like, only in America and only in Miami can you do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I love this city. I think we're the greatest city. I mean, even though I travel, I recently went to up to Finland to see the Northern Lights, and that was cool as hell. That was probably one of the coolest trips I've done. And just went with my daughter to Africa. That was a lot of fun. When I land in Miami and I kind of see the Miami skyline, I always think still the greatest city.
Yeah. I agree. It's we live in an unbelievable place, and we're hanging out with really cool people doing really cool shit in this city.
I mean, the fact that you guys, cheers to you guys. Thank you for doing these. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming down. That's a perfect place to end it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lissette. Seriously, it was really great getting to know you and sharing your story with our listeners.
Absolutely.
We really didn't know that much about you, but what an amazing story.
By the way, if I see a blue Corvette on the street, I'm asking for a burnout. I want spin them up, smoke them out. Let's see it.
You got it.
All right. Awesome.
Cheers.
Lissette. Have a wonderful
Thank
afternoon.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.